Hey, morning everybody. It's Sean. Welcome to SheppardDevos. Glad to be with you again today. The song of the day was by Jeremy Camp, and it was called "Let It Fade." Um, all of Jeremy's stuff is really pretty good. And again, that last name is Camp, C-A-M-P. If you want to buy some of his stuff. But the song "Let It Fade" is super strong, very lyrically potent, and you sort of walk away with. Hopefully, you're walking away with this idea about the rest that God can offer you, offer me, because he's, as he talks about, he says, let this whole life crumble, let it fade, let this new life's offer be your saving grace. And I think about this, and we've talked about it before in one way or another, about how so often we've got this struggle to either live this Christian life on our own strength, which sort of keeps us chasing our tail because we find out that it's just not enough. Our own strength is not enough to be able to somehow measure up to a place that we can please God. And then we also see that for those of us that maybe don't know the Lord, have not come to saving faith in Jesus Christ, that we are, we're still pursuing the things of the world, and finding, and if we haven't found it yet, we will find that ends up leaving us empty at the end. God never designed the world or the things the world can offer to completely fulfill every desire and requirement that you have. He's always left us in a place where we'd be seeking more. And that's purposeful, because God always wanted to leave that spot that would continually cause us to want to come back to Him for the ultimate fulfillment in life and to find that place of ultimate peace. So we're going to talk a bit about a couple scripture today. The first one is going to be in Proverbs chapter 3. Verses 5 and 6, and you might be familiar with this one. But very simply, it says, to trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge the Lord in all of your ways, and He will make your path straight. One of the first verses I learned as a kid, or as a younger teenager, I guess, because it had a song that was put to it. But this idea and this picture of trusting in the Lord with all of your heart and leaning not on your own understanding. And if we're not leaning on our own understanding, it means we're leaning on something else. I believe that He wants us to be able to lean on Him. And as we pursue and we go through our life, it's like Jeremy was saying in this song, it's this always this continual searching after things. You're going to find us, sort of desperate, where God is saying, listen, don't lean on your own understanding, don't chase after those things, don't try to do everything in your own strength. Instead, trust in me with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding and your own abilities. Acknowledge me, acknowledge God in all of your ways, and I will make your path straight. So the first thing we want to touch on is this issue of leaning. What are we leaning on today? And if we find ourselves continually striving for something, maybe God is calling us to a place of rest and taking a break from our own labors that way. I want to go to the next section of Scripture in Hebrews, and this can be a complicated section of Scripture, and I'm going to try to sort of skim over the top. But as we get into Hebrews chapter 3, we hear and see that what is being talked about is this issue of rest. And actually, we'll start off in chapter 4 just to keep it easy. But in Hebrews chapter 4, the story is that the writer of Hebrews, we don't know who it was, the writer of Hebrews is talking about the people of Israel and how that nation, God had provided the law to them. It was a law that there was impossible for them to completely obey correctly. And so they found themselves in this place of striving and never being able to measure up. But more than that, their issue came down to where God said, hey, listen, if you'll trust me, I'm going to take you over to this promised land. You've been wandering the wilderness here for 40 years. I'm going to take you over into the promised land, but you've got to be willing to trust me. And this promised land is what they call this place of rest. Well, the real issue came down to the fact that the people of Israel chose not to trust God. And so with that, he said, well, then you can't enter this rest. You have to have faith and trust me in order to get to this place of rest and being able to take a load off. So that's the background to Hebrews chapter 4. And it says here, right in verse 1, it says, therefore, since a promise remains of entering his rest, let us fear lest any of you seem to have come short of it. For indeed the gospel is preached to us as well as to them. But the word which they heard did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in those who heard it. So that's exactly what he's saying. He says, hey, since this promise of rest exists, let's make sure that we don't miss this thing. So, because the people of Israel and us, we've heard the same gospel, the same promise of rest. But it said that they did not enter it because they did not combine it with faith. And so they missed out on the goodness of what God wanted to do. And in the beginning of verse 3, it says, for we who have believed do enter that rest. So the takeaway for that is, we listen to this song, and he's telling us, man, let this old life crumble and let it fade and quit chasing after this stuff. Aren't you tired of, I don't know, striving, when the whole time God has said, listen, I've got a place of rest provided for you, a place where you're not constantly striving, where you know that your salvation is secured, it's based upon Him. And maybe you've been trying to do things your own way. In marriage, maybe you've been stubborn. Maybe there have been all kinds of things where God would have you do things a little bit differently, do it His way, and yet you've continued to strive against that. And I think God's promise is there's a place of rest for you in the midst of difficulty, or whatever things have been going on in your life. We know that if we have faith and we trust in God, and we say, Lord, I want to do things your way, I want to be able to have your peace, then we'll be able to find that place of rest. And that doesn't mean that all of our problems go away immediately, but it does mean that we're on the road to being able to see God's will done in our life. And we know as God's will is done in our life, we are going to experience greater and greater peace. And even if it means that peace we're experiencing right in the midst of difficulty and turmoil. But on the flip side, we can also know this, that if we choose not to put our faith in God and to quit striving, if we choose not to discontinue leaning on our own understanding, doing things our own way, that we shouldn't have any expectation of peace in our life, because God has designed it in such a way to say, listen, if you want to go my way, I'll give you peace. But if you don't want to go your way, well, then you reap the harvest that you sown, which is difficulty and strife and aggravation. So anyway, I don't know if it may not seem really, really encouraging to you today, but it is food for thought. And you know what? We need those days as well. So let us trust in the Lord. Let us lean not on our own understanding, but lean upon Him. And let us, just strive to enter that place of rest. Put our faith in Him and say, God, your way, not my way today, or in the rest of my life. Let me do things the way that you want. Okay, be blessed, y'all. We'll catch you later.